a professor of law at the University of Ottawa. Joining us now in America Tonight, David Sweanor. And I'll tell you what we're talking about is fascinating because it's wasted dollars and it's ridiculous when we talk about tobacco and health policies that I think are very confusing to most people. And why? Because the right kind of information isn't out there. I think that's part of what it's about. And specifically something that caught our attention and something that's being talked about is this quit smoking hotline that apparently, according to some, actually encourages people to smoke more. How much would be saved by cutting that hotline? $2.5 million. David, thanks so much for popping on with us.
Great to chat with you, Kate.
So when we talk about this hotline, let's jump right into it. First of all, what is it about the hotline that's providing erroneous information? And so it's two-part. Why aren't they scrapping it? Because it's not working.
Sure, Kate. Well, this is a hotline that's been put up by the Department of Defense to give people information about smoking and smokeless tobacco and various other things. It was brought to my attention because it was promoted actually by the Centers for Disease Control, the major government body, saying that this is a great place to get information about smokeless tobacco. Well, I've always been interested in this because, of course, actually most people don't realize it. Cigarette smoking is massively more hazardous than using smokeless tobacco. People smoke for the nicotine, they die from the smoke. The problem is the smoke. It isn't the nicotine, it isn't the tobacco, it's the smoke. So I tried the website to see what they'd tell me. And what I got was just a barrage of misinformation, telling me that it's better to quit the smokeless than the cigarettes if you're using both, which is just absolute nonsense. It's telling me that nicotine causes cancer, which is absolute nonsense. And it was encouraging me, if I smoked and used smokeless, to keep up the smoking, but get off the smokeless. And, that's really like saying, stop throwing baseballs, but keep tossing the live hand grenades. The difference in risk is just enormous.
Yeah. And I think somehow it's just not being realized. Is it just because, we always have this line and we just put it up and so it kind of is under the wire?
Yeah, I think what's happened is that the whole campaign about smoking and tobacco has joined some others in the noble category of abstinence only. We're just going to tell people don't use anything. And we know how well that worked with alcohol. We know how well it's working with the war on drugs. We know how well it works in telling people never have sex outside of marriage. And it's working just as well when we get into issues of nicotine. There's a lot of people who are addicted to nicotine. There's a lot of people who are self-medicating with nicotine. There's a lot of people who like nicotine, just like caffeine and other drugs. But what we have is an incredibly deadly delivery system. Cigarette smoking will kill over half of long-term users. It's killing about 40,000 Americans every month. And the problem, as I was saying, it's the smoke. If you get anything into your body by sucking smoke into your lungs, you have a very high probability it'll kill you. That's what causes the lung cancer and the mouth cancer, the esophageal cancer. That's what causes the strokes, the heart attacks, the emphysema. It's the smoke. So we've known for decades that if you could just get people off the smoke, we would just dramatically reduce the risk. And yet, instead of informing people about what they can, really do, because it's far easier to get off the cigarettes and deal with the nicotine issue later, by saying you just have to quit everything is equally hazardous, or indeed other things are even more hazardous than cigarettes, we have far more people smoking than would otherwise be the case. We know from surveys from the U.S. government that only about 10% of Americans realize that any smokeless tobacco product is less hazardous than a cigarette, rather than saying virtually all of them are massively less hazardous than smoking a cigarette. It's not only been a misinformation campaign funded with taxpayer dollars, but it's been a very successful one where we have a tremendous number of people who are smoking cigarettes who wouldn't if they simply knew the truth.
Yeah, so almost for the, you almost answered that question for the tobacco industry. When we were talking about pure cigarettes, it's almost helpful to them when, if you know anyone in the tobacco industry, a lot of what they're saying is, look, we have a lot of people that smoke, so we're not trying to, if somebody really, honest to goodness, wants to quit, then we want them to quit. Because they can say that. That sounds funny, but I had a conversation with somebody in the industry. He said, hey, if you want to quit our product, because we have plenty of people that really want our product. It's crazy. So it seems as though that's kind of pushing people in that direction where, of course, they're not going to quit.
Well, Well, exactly. And of course, any cigarette company can now say, it's not our fault. I mean, we do manufacture other products. And you have some companies like Swedish Match, the Swedish company that dominates the tobacco market in Sweden with a product called snus, which Joe Nocera with Bloomberg News has just written a terrific column about. Sweden's got smoking rates down to 5%. I mean, no other country's anywhere close to that. It's not that people have stopped using any form of nicotine. It's just they use it in a way that doesn't kill them. They're using a Swedish Match product, snus, which you can buy in the States. The problem is people don't, because they don't realize that it's less hazardous. They don't realize it's less hazardous, in part because government agencies, using taxpayer money, is convincing people it isn't less hazardous. In many cases, convincing people it's more hazardous. So it was probably right up there with saying, why don't we run big campaigns telling people how dangerous it is to use a condom, or how you can really wreck yourself by putting on a seatbelt. And for heaven's sakes, avoid life jackets if you're in a boat. I mean, it's incredible that agencies that we would count on to give us truthful information, to allow us to make informed decisions, have decided instead to have this abstinence-only, really moralistic type campaign that treats using nicotine like it's a sin rather than this is a health issue. What would we do if people got their caffeine by smoking tea leaves? Would we just demonize them, or would we say, for heaven's sakes, go to a Starbucks or, brew your tea? I mean, the problem isn't the drug, it's the delivery system.
Yeah, I love how you say that. So here's a great question for you. Then what are some of the most effective ways, as somebody who has spent his life working in and around tobacco and policies and whatnot, what are some of the effective ways for people to quit smoking?
Sure. There's different things that are going to work for different people because, of course, different people use nicotine for different reasons. But I think the pragmatic approach, what we do on public health and all other issues is meet people where they are, try to understand what matters to them. If you've got somebody who's addicted to nicotine, if you've got somebody who's self-medicating with it, because it can do a lot of good things for a lot of people. There's reasons why we have very high rates of nicotine use in subpopulations. I think the key thing is what's worked on so many other areas of public health. Give people enough information to make an informed decision, give them the ability to act on it. So we don't just say, never eat in a restaurant. We say, we'll give you information about what's the healthy choices, or we will let you know which restaurants are serving poisonous food, or whatever. We will allow you to make these better decisions. We will point you in the direction of that. And many of our biggest breakthroughs in public health come from those really two simple things. Give people enough information to make an informed decision, give them the ability to act on that. Let them know what you can do. So in this case, if we simply told people the truth, that nicotine itself, at the dosage levels you're looking for, is not particularly hazardous. It can be compared to caffeine. The problem is the delivery system. Smoke kills. Sucking smoke into your lungs, whether it's from a cigarette or an open fire, doesn't matter. It's smoke. It'll kill you. What we need to do is look at alternatives. And if you're looking at products that heat tobacco rather than burn it, if you're looking at smokeless tobacco, like the moist snuff sold in the States, things like Copenhagen or Skoal or the Swedish Match General Snus sorts of products, if you're looking at electronic cigarettes, if you're looking at medicinal nicotine like Nicorette products, any of those things are going to massively reduce your risk compared to smoking a cigarette. So try different things, see what works for you, but get off the smoke. And after that, if you want to get off the nicotine as well, fantastic. You can do that if you want. Many of these products are way less addictive than a cigarette. But the key thing is you want to keep people alive. If you want to stay alive, stop sucking smoke into your lungs. Look for an alternative. I think if we told people more about that, we would see more results like they've seen in Sweden of getting smoking rates down to 5%. If you do that, the 40,000 deaths per month happening in the United States now from cigarette smoking could largely disappear in a very short period of time. I mean, we know that most smokers are already saying, I wish I wasn't doing this. Well, let's tell them what they can do instead. Let's give them truthful information. Let's give them the ability to act on it. And if we were sensible, we could even use tax policy to say the less hazardous products won't be taxed. Cigarettes will. They'll be taxed heavily. So the products that don't kill you are going to be cheaper to get. They're going to be more widely available than cigarettes. and we're going to give you truthful information about them. And sort of exactly the opposite of what we see happening in policy now, where cigarettes are given a huge marketplace advantage, and the various alternatives, we just see constant misinformation, whether it be about e-cigarettes or the nicotine in Nicorette-type products, or the heat-not-burn products, or the smokeless tobacco products. Let's start giving people honest information. Let's give them the ability to act on that. Let's encourage that. And let's see just how rapidly we can get a revolution in public health.
I agree with you. Perfect place to end this. Imagine if that was 5%, 40,000 deaths. That's ridiculous. David Sweanor, thanks so much. And thanks to all of you for listening to America Tonight.
I'll be a chauffeur on a midnight drive. It takes a miracle just to survive.